Welcome back to Decoding Zarathustra. Last time, we saw Zarathustra confront and dismiss the magician, but his journey through the mountains is far from over.
Right. He's collecting these higher men, but it seems like he's running into one strange character after another. Who's next on the path?
Almost immediately, he spots another figure. This one is described as a tall, black man with a haggard, pale face, and Zarathustra's first reaction is pure frustration.
He's not happy to see him?
Not at all. He thinks to himself, here we go again. He sees this man as another kind of magician, or more specifically, he thinks the man is of the type of the priests.
And we know how Zarathustra feels about priests. He sees them as manipulators, right? People who poison the world.
Exactly. He internally calls him a somber wonder worker, an anointed world maligner. He's so annoyed he even curses the devil for not being there to take this man away.
So he's planning to just ignore him? To walk right past?
That's the plan. He tries to figure out how to slip by without making eye contact. But, of course, it doesn't work out that way. The sitting man sees Zarathustra, and his reaction is the complete opposite. He springs to his feet like someone who's just had an unexpected stroke of good luck.
Okay, so this man is actually happy to see Zarathustra. He doesn't seem threatening.
Not at all. He approaches Zarathustra and says, "Whatever thou art, thou traveler, help a strayed one, a seeker, an old man, who may here easily come to grief."
So he's lost and asking for help. He says the world is strange to him, and he heard wild beasts. He sounds vulnerable.
He is, and he adds a crucial line. He who could have given me protection, he is himself no more.
His protector is gone. Who was he looking for?
He was searching for a pious man, a saint and an anchorite, basically a hermit living alone in the forest. Because, as the old man says, this saint had not yet heard of what all the world knoweth at present.
That's a great hook. What is this big news that everyone in the world apparently knows, but this isolated saint didn't?
Zarathustra picks up on it immediately. He asks, "What doth all the world know at present?" And then he answers his own question. Perhaps that the old God no longer liveth, in whom all the world once believed.
Wow, straight to the point. God is dead. And what does the old man say?
He answers sorrowfully, "Thou sayest it." And then he reveals his connection to this news. He says, "And I served that old God until his last hour."
Until his last hour. That's a powerful image. So this man was deeply connected to the old religion.
More than connected. He explains his current situation. "Now, however, am I out of service, without master, and yet not free." That's a perfect way to put it. He's adrift. He says he's no longer merry, except when he's lost in recollections of the past. And that's why he came to the mountains. He wanted to have one last festival for himself, a festival of pious recollections and divine services.
A private ceremony to honor the past. And then comes the big reveal of who he is, right?
Yes. He looks at Zarathustra and says, "For know it that I am the last pope."
The last pope. So Zarathustra, the man who preaches the death of God, is face to face with God's former chief representative on earth.
Precisely. And the Pope's plan to have a final celebration with the forest saint has failed, because he found the saint's cottage empty with 2 wolves howling over his death.
So his last connection to the old world of piety is also gone. What does he do then?
He says his heart made a new decision. He decided to seek another, the most pious of all those who don't believe in God. He decided to seek Zarathustra.
That is a fascinating turn. The last pope, having found God is dead, seeks out the ungodly Zarathustra as the most pious person left.
It shows he's looking for a new kind of faith, a new form of integrity. Zarathustra is taken aback. He takes the old pope's hand and admires it.
Why does he admire his hand?
He says, "What a fine and long hand. That is the hand of one who hath ever dispensed blessings." He's acknowledging the Pope's history and his role, but then he immediately contrasts it with his own identity. He says, "Now, however, doth it hold fast him whom you seek? Me, Zarathustra. It is I, the ungodly Zarathustra."
He's making it very clear that he is not a replacement for God. He's something entirely different.
Exactly. He then challenges the Pope. "Who is ungodlier than I, that I may enjoy his teaching?"
And how does the Pope respond to that? Does he still see Zarathustra as pious?
The Pope makes a surprising confession. He says, "Lo, I myself am surely the most godless of us at present, but who could rejoice at that?"
He feels he's the most godless because he, who loved God the most, has now lost him most completely. His faith was so total that its absence is also total.
That's the core of it. After a long silence, Zarathustra asks a very pointed question. "Thou servedst him to the last? Thou knowest how he died?" He then offers a theory. Is it true what they say, that sympathy choked him, that he saw how man hung on the cross and could not endure it, that his love to man became his hell and at last his death?
So Zarathustra's theory is that God died of pity, that he loved humanity so much but couldn't bear our suffering and it destroyed him.
Yes, that God's all-encompassing love for a flawed and suffering creation became an unbearable burden, a very Nietzschean idea.
Does the Pope confirm this? Does he answer?
No, he just looks away with a painful, gloomy expression. He can't or won't answer that question directly. Zarathustra doesn't press him on it. Instead, he says, "Let him go. He is gone." But he adds that they both know what God was really like, that he went curious ways.
This seems to open the door for the Pope. He was hesitant before, but now Zarathustra is inviting a more honest, critical conversation.
And the Pope walks right through it. He suddenly brightens up and says that when it comes to divine matters, he's actually more enlightened than Zarathustra.
Oh, really? On what grounds?
He says, "A good servant, however, knoweth everything, and many a thing even which a master hideth from himself." He's claiming to have the inside story.
So now we get the Pope's tell-all biography of God. What does he say?
It's a devastating critique. First, he says God was a hidden God, full of secrecy. He even implies the story of his son was scandalous, saying, "At the door of his faith stands adultery."
That's a shocking thing for a Pope to say. He's dismantling the very foundations of his old religion.
He continues. He says anyone who calls him a God of love doesn't think highly enough of love, because this God also wanted to be a judge. But a true lover loves without wanting reward.
He's separating the idea of pure love from the transactional nature of the old religion.
Then he gives a history. When God was young, he says he was harsh and revengeful and built a hell for his favorites to enjoy watching others suffer.
A cruel, tribal deity. That's a common historical critique.
But then the Pope says God became old, soft and mellow and pitiful. He became less like a father and more like a tottering old grandmother.
From a vengeful tyrant to a weak, sentimental old woman, that's some character arc.
And the final scene he paints is of this old, weak God sitting in the corner, world-weary, will-weary, and then one day he simply suffocated of his all-too-great pity.
So he agrees with Zarathustra's theory in the end, but gives it this much more detailed, almost pathetic backstory. God didn't just die of pity, he withered away into it.
Zarathustra interrupts him there. He says, it could well have happened in that way, and also otherwise. When gods die, they always die many kinds of death.
He's saying the specific story doesn't matter as much as the fact that he's gone. There can be many narratives for the end of an era.
Right. For Zarathustra, the point is he's gone. And then he gives his own critique. He says this God was counter to the taste of my ears and eyes.
It wasn't a moral failing, but an aesthetic one? He just found God to be in bad taste?
That's a huge part of it. He says God was equivocal and indistinct. He was like a priest, not direct and honest. Zarathustra loves things that are bright and clear.
He asks how he raged at us because we understood him badly. But why did he not speak more clearly?
He's shifting the blame. If we misunderstood God, maybe it's because God was a poor communicator.
Or, he continues, if the fault was with our ears, who put the dirt in our ears in the first place? He's trapping the concept of God in a logical loop. And this leads to his famous analogy. He says, too much miscarried with him, this potter who had not learned thoroughly. And Zarathustra says that for this potter to take revenge on his own flawed creations was a sin against good taste.
It always comes back to taste and aesthetics for him. It's not just immoral, it's tacky.
And this, he concludes, is the ultimate outcome. He says that good taste, even within piety itself, would eventually say, away with such a God. Better to have no God, better to set up destiny on one's own account, better to be a fool, better to be God oneself.
That's the core of the Übermensch philosophy right there. In the vacuum left by a flawed God, humanity must create its own values.
The old pope is completely captivated. He says, "What do I hear? O Zarathustra, thou art more pious than thou believest, with such an unbelief."
He's come full circle. He sought Zarathustra because he was the most pious of the godless, and now he's seeing that piety in action.
He suggests that it's Zarathustra's own deep piety and honesty that make it impossible for him to believe in the old flawed God anymore.
The Pope then looks at him and says he sees that Zarathustra has eyes and hands and mouth which have been predestined for blessing from eternity.
He still sees a holy purpose in Zarathustra, even if Zarathustra himself would call it ungodly.
Yes, he says, I feel a hale and holy odor of long benedictions around him, and on that basis he makes a simple request. Let me be thy guest, O Zarathustra, for a single night.
He wants sanctuary. After wandering and being out of service, he just wants a place to rest with this new, strange form of holiness.
Zarathustra is astonished, but he agrees immediately. Amen, so shall it be. He points the way to his cave.
So he takes him in. Another higher man for his collection?
He does. He says he'll gladly guide him because he loves all pious men. But then he says a cry of distress is calling him away urgently.
He offers his cave as a good haven and says his goal is to put every sorrowful person back on firm land and firm legs.
But he can't stay and comfort the Pope himself?
No, and he makes a final crucial point. He tells the Pope, "Who, however, could take thy melancholy off thy shoulders? For that I am too weak."
He's admitting his own limits. He can't just fix the Pope's sorrow.
Because, as he explains, to do that, we should have to wait until someone reawaked your God for thee, and that's impossible. The chapter ends with Zarathustra's final definitive statement to the last Pope. For that old God liveth no more. He is indeed dead.
A powerful conclusion. Zarathustra can offer shelter and a new path, but he cannot bring back the dead. The past is truly past.